Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Michigan Minute Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Richards. Excited to bring this show to you guys. I'm a lifelong Wolverine, attended the University of Michigan, and super passionate about everything Michigan sports. So I thought there'd be no better way than to project that than starting a show about it. So what we're going to be doing on this show is we're going to be talking about recent headlines about Michigan sports. We're going to be talking football, basketball, baseball, hockey, you name it. This is something I've been throwing around the idea of starting for a while now, and figured there's, no better time than the present when we have a huge week in Michigan news. So I'm just going to get right into it. Jim Harbaugh has re-signed with the University of Michigan for a 5-year deal, cutting his salary by 50% to a $4 million yearly salary. Now, he does have incentives built into the contract, beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship, winning the national championship, making the college football playoff. All these things are built into that contract. These are all things that I think we expected Jim Harbaugh to do when he signed with Michigan back in 2015. And over the past 5 years, we've definitely seen an improvement over the Hoke and Richrod era, but we haven't quite got back to where we think we should be and where we need to be. So there's a lot of criticism saying that this is a mediocre hire, a rehire, and people around the Michigan program don't seem to be very happy with it based on the trajectory of the program. Now, if you look back at Harbaugh's first 3 years, he did much better than people expected. A couple 10-win seasons. Obviously, we had the JT was short game. We were competitive with Ohio State. We were ranked in the top 10 on a consistent basis. But that's starting to fall apart around 2018. Obviously, the 2019 season got another 10-win season in there, but we've been disappointing in the postseason. We've been disappointing against the big players in the Big Ten. He's got a 3-3 record against Michigan State. He's got an 0-5 record against Ohio State, and if we're being honest, would have been 0-6 this year with how the Buckeyes have looked. And can't even get a trip to Indy out of it. So my takeaway from it is there's pros and there's cons to keeping Harbaugh around. My first initial reaction is, why didn't this happen, 3-4 weeks ago before National Signing Day? Did we potentially lose out on commits such as Rayshon Benny, who is now trending in Michigan State's direction? Will this bring some of those guys in that didn't sign in the early signing period? Obviously, we got some studs, J.J. McCarthy, 5-star quarterback, leading the way. So I'm excited that we're keeping him in order to keep that recruiting class intact. But, there were a lot of rumors that Jim Harbaugh was going to leave town, that he was going to the NFL. But we really haven't seen any of those rumors substantiated over the past couple weeks. Obviously, the Chargers were thrown around, the hometown Lions were even thrown around. But I think most of that was actually speculation, which leads me to believe even more so that it's ridiculous that this contract extension wasn't hashed out before the National Signing Day. There's just no reason for it. All he did was hurt the recruiting class. All he did was create a media stir throughout the entire country, because everyone wants to know what Jim Harbaugh is doing, what Michigan's doing. So to me, there are pros and cons, like I said. The cons are the last 3 years have been, especially this year, was pathetic on the football field. 2-4. One of those wins coming in triple overtime against Rutgers, losing to a Michigan State team that was horrid, just absolutely terrible football team, making Rocky Lombardi look like a Heisman candidate. Now, a lot of those issues did stem from the defensive side of the ball, and we'll get to the new potential DC hirings, but we did take a step in the right direction, in my belief, by firing Don Brown, and he has found himself a position with the Arizona Wildcats. So best of luck to Coach Brown. Brought a lot of good times to Michigan, but it was certainly time to move on. It seemed as if everyone in the Big Ten had kind of figured out his defense. The aggressive style that he brought to the table just certainly didn't seem to be doing well in the Big Ten anymore. So, like I said, Harbaugh, he really needs to step his game up these next couple of years. If we're 2 years down the road, we're not even being competitive with Ohio State, we're still losing games to Michigan State, Penn State, this is something that can't be accepted. And if we were still getting the Jim Harbaugh that we got when he first started with Michigan, fired up all the time, super excited, crazy on the sidelines, But what we've seen in the past couple of years is sedated, doesn't really look like he knows what's going on the sidelines. It's been kind of sad to watch how his tenure has played out. Now this 5-year extension does give him room for redemption, which I am, really hoping for, as every Michigan fan should hope that he rights this ship and turns this thing around. But in my opinion, it's going to take a complete and total culture shift of the program. We got to throw out, this is Michigan. What Michigan has been is mediocre. We don't want to be mediocre anymore. We want to contend for Big Ten titles. We want to contend for national championships. And we got to get the team, the program, the coaches, the fans fired up about this. This is something that has struck a chord with me deeply. You go to the Big House, the culture around Michigan football needs a heavy updating. I don't know if Harbaugh is the guy to do it, but someone who I do have a lot of hope for is our new defensive coordinator. Most likely, it appears that at this time, defensive or linebackers coach of the Baltimore Ravens, Mike McDonald, is set up to be the next defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan. A lot of people are saying, this might be a little bit of a lazy snag. He's one of Jim's brother John's guys working on that Baltimore staff. But what I see in Mike McDonald is a lot of potential. He seems like a culture guy, someone who's going to, get that defense fired up every week, play an aggressive style of football, inflict pain on the opponent. And that's what I want to see from this Michigan team. We have all the talent in the world. We've had consistent top 10 recruiting classes. I don't think we're quite yet on the talent level of Ohio State, the Clemsons of the world, the Alabamas of the world, and that's obvious. But in order to get there, I think the culture needs to be improved immensely. And I see that potentially happening with Mike McDonald. Now, breaking down his past, he's worked with the Ravens for the past 7 years. He started off as a defensive assistant, moving into the defensive backs coach, and has been the linebacker coach for the past 3 years. Before that, he does have college coaching experience. He worked at Georgia, where he was a safeties coach and a defensive quality control coach. So that makes me believe, and it actually gives me a little comfort knowing that he had some college experience in there with a premier program. It's not like Georgia's, Temple of the world, or I don't even know. It's a Power 5 school. It's an SEC school. They're year in, year out contending for SEC titles. They made it to the championship game a couple of years ago, and he was part of that staff that built them to where they're at. Now, I'm really hoping that he turns out to be a tough culture guy for this program, and hopefully can be a defensive coordinator for Michigan for a long time. Now, this is all assuming that he actually does sign. Obviously, the Ravens are in the playoffs right now, so we're going to see how that plays out. But if you look at how the Ravens linebackers have performed, he has come in and developed a lot of raw talent into great NFL linebackers. And we don't even need great NFL linebackers at Michigan. What we need is great college linebackers, obviously. Nick Popio from fansided.com pointed out, it's well known that Baltimore's defense has consistently been one of the premier groups in and out every single year, and there's no debating that fact. McDonald likes an aggressive style of defense. I'm excited to see where it takes us. I'm excited to see how it plays out. Maybe he brings some more advanced defensive schemes, because like I said with Don Brown, it seemed like over the past couple years, we have gotten incredibly complacent on our scheme. We blitz a lot. We run man-to-man, bump and run coverage on the outside, and it just hasn't worked out. I mean, like I said, I love Don Brown, cool guy, but he had to go. So hopefully we get a new look, a new culture on the Michigan defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, looking forward this year, obviously there's going to be a quarterback battle. We still have Joe Milton, Cade McNamara, and the incoming freshman J.J. McCarthy, who I'm super excited to see. There's no doubt in my mind that week one on campus at camp that he is going to have the most arm talent of the group. Milton, obviously a physical specimen, 6'5", 250, Cam Newton-esque in his build. We saw some bright spots with him last year. We saw some rough spots with him last year. Cade came in and gave the offense a spark when Milton was fluttering. And it'll just be interesting to see how that plays out. Knowing Harbaugh, there will be a competition from week one. Personally, I'd love to see McCarthy get some reps, but obviously I want to see what he's got going. His high school tape looks phenomenal. He's won everywhere he's gone, took his talents to IMG Academy in Florida. So I'm super, super excited to see what the freshman combo of him and maybe Donovan Edwards a little bit has going for us. So with that being said, what do you guys think about this extension of Jim Harbaugh? What do you guys think about the culture that he's going to try to reshape in the future here? Like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I want to see a fiery Harbaugh again. I hope this, lit a fire under his rear end, as some would say, and that he realized this job is not to be taken granted for. I mean, although the timing of it was less than ideal, I'm glad Harbaugh's back. I'm glad we're keeping a lot of the good members of our staff here, because I think we do have a really solid staff. I think Harbaugh's put together a great staff. Now, we got to see that staff take the talent that we have, develop it, and put on a great on-field product. And if that happens, I couldn't be happier that Harbaugh's the guy to do it. So we will see about that. Moving forward, I'm just going to touch on Michigan basketball a little bit because, oh my goodness, this team looks like a legitimate Final Four threat. I'm not saying we're going to win the title because it's March Madness, everything's crazy. But what Juwan Howard's done in his second year as a head coach, bringing in new guys such as Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown Jr. as transfers and developing them even more so than what we've seen in their past play. We've got a true freshman by the name of Hunter Dickinson. And if you haven't heard of him, I don't even know where you've been. Dude's an absolute monster. Like I said, 7'1", true freshman, top 10 KenPom national player rankings at this time. Not just for freshmen, for all players. He's averaging like 18 points on 73% from the field. It's getting ridiculous. Then obviously Franz Wagner stepped up in the past couple weeks. He's looking like an absolute animal on both ends of the court. Isaiah Livers is doing what Isaiah Livers does. Just a glue guy, hitting big shots. But what I want to see from this team is obviously the big hit on them at the beginning of the year was that they haven't played anybody. They're blowing out these lowly opponents. Dropped out of the top 25. Now we rocketed into the top 10 after beating a couple ranked opponents within the Big Ten. But they've all been blowouts. What I want to see is how this team handles adversity, how this team can bounce back after a rough first half. Because they look great as front runners, and anyone can look great up 20 just out there having fun playing some basketball. But when we get into the heart of the Big Ten schedule, grinding day in, day out in the best conference in college basketball, it's where I want to see the upperclassmen leadership of Livers, Eli Brooks. I want to see Mike Smith take charge of the offense, and I want to see Hunter Dickinson continue to do what he's been doing. So if that all works out, I think we got a great shot at winning the Big Ten tournament, and then obviously the NCAA tournament is just chaos. So we'll have to see about that. That's about all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys very much for tuning into the first episode of the Michigan Minute podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMishMinute and Instagram at the same, @TheMishMinute. These videos will be posted on each of those as well as our YouTube channel at the Michigan Minute. Thank you guys and have a good one. Go Blue!